All right, hey everybody. Once again, it's been a long time since you've seen me. It's also been a long time since I've uploaded any movies. I know. Just been really, really lazy lately. Um, really lazy lately. Just haven't been feeling it. I know. How sad is that? I'm too lazy to sit on my ass in front of a fucking computer and rip a DVD and upload it to YouTube. But that's how it goes. I don't know. I dropped out of college twice, folks. Okay, what does that tell you? Okay, um, but I'm basically here, as the title will say above this video, to talk about the Expendables 2. Now, um, as I upload this, it'll probably be Saturday, but I did see this opening day on Friday, because I was not going to wait another day to go see Expendables 2. Now, Expendables 2, there's a lot of stuff going on about this movie, whether or not it was going to be R or PG-13. And there was a lot of questions that were brought up on who was responsible, whether it was Chuck Norris or whatever. But I always had some hope for this movie because I really enjoyed the first film. And even though Stallone didn't have any creative control, at least not as much as he did with the first one, because he's not directing this one, Simon West is. Um, After seeing the film, I gotta say, this movie was fucking awesome. I really enjoyed The Expendables 2. I really did. I mean, Expendables 2 not only met my expectations, it like preceded it because this movie, like, it's better than the first one. Right off the bat, I have to say it's better than the first one. The opening sequence is bigger. More stuff happens in the opening. It's great, much better than what happened in the beginning of the first film. Um, there's more action in this than in the first one. Um, I know I've read some reviews saying that the film kind of drags a bit in the middle. I have to disagree with that. I don't think it was that slow. There were some moments where they stop, they have their sort of little conversations, and they have some fun dialogue, I thought. But overall, I thought the film kept moving. I thought there was still a really good amount of action from beginning to end. Um, and what one thing about this movie also that I think makes it better than the first is that although I really enjoyed the first one, the first movie didn't really feel like an 80s action movie. It didn't have that 80s action movie feel. It felt like a really modern film, and that's really mainly because of the shaky cam and some of the really bad CGI. This one, however, there's no shaky cam. There isn't. The camera stays still. You can see what's going on. Simon West, this is probably his second best film after Con Air. He did a great job directing this because he holds the camera still. There's no shaky cam, and that mixed with all the humor. I mean, there's a ton of references to a lot of the main cast's older films. Um, I'm not really going to go into the plot mainly because, well, the plot's fairly simple, you know, and I don't really want to spoil anything for anybody because I really do think people should go check this out in the theater. It's worth the money because I had a blast watching this in the theater. And like I said, it has that real 80s action movie feel to it. And, maybe that's just me, but again, there is, like, I'm not going to lie, there is some CGI. And as far as this movie being shot PG-13, but being, they added in CGI blood and stuff like that to make it R, I can believe that because there's not a single F-bomb in this movie. Not once did I hear the word fuck or even the word shit. I think the only curse word I heard was ass. I think that was it. So I would believe that because it is when people get shot. Yes, it is CGI, but it's not as bad as in the first one. The CGI blood in the first one, that was bad. In this, you could still tell it was CGI, but it wasn't nearly as noticeable as it was in the first movie. Um, and I mean, yeah, I mean, I kind of want to go into the to main details, but I don't really want to spoil it. All I will say, in the beginning, you get that scene in the trailer where they're in the big trucks with bad attitude and the big thing that says knock knock on it, and you got Jason Statham up in this big minigun going, just blowing motherfuckers away, just taking mother down, and then you've got Terry Crews, the fucking rocket launcher, boom. Um, you got Dolph Lundgren, Randy Couture, Jason Statham, Stallone, they're all coming out with machine guns, just blasting away motherfuckers, crashing through walls. Um, and in the opening, we're actually introduced to Schwarzenegger's character, who's actually there also on a mission. And you get that scene, again, not really a spoiler because it's in the trailer, where he says, I need a weapon. He goes over to Terry Crews, I need a weapon. Yours. And, Terry Crews goes, my big weapon's hanging right where it is. And you get this pretty decent line where, Terry Crews gives him the big gun. It's the big fucking automatic shotgun. He gives it to Schwarzenegger, and he says, if I don't get this gun back, your ass is terminated. Get it? But I was fine with. There's a lot of dialogue like that references a bunch of different movies. And it's a fun scene. Now, sadly, after this opening sequence, you no longer see Jet Li throughout the movie because Jet Li, what they're doing in the beginning is, I guess I'm getting into spoilers now. I said I wouldn't, but I'll put a little disclaimer. They're going in there to rescue this Asian billionaire, which Schwarzenegger and his crew was in there to rescue also, but Schwarzenegger got captured. And actually, when we're first introduced to him, he's actually tied to a chair with a fucking bag over his head. And when they get him out, they're in their plane. They're flying over China, and they're going to basically, Jet Li and this Asian guy, Jet Li's got a parachute, and he's got the Asian guy sort of strapped on to him as well. They jump out of the plane, and they land in, they go to China, and what Jet Li says, if you never see me again, it's because, you may never see me again because I may just start another life down here, or, something like that. And we never see him for the rest of the film. I'm not really sure why Jet Li wasn't in the whole movie. Maybe he had something else that he was doing at the time. I don't know. But after the opening sequence, where he actually does get to kick some ass, he has a cool little fight scene where he fights these guys off with frying pans. I know it sounds goofy, but it's actually pretty cool. And after that, we never see him again. And, of course, you've got the new guy, Billy the Kid, played by Liam Hemsworth. And he does a good job. He's not in it a whole lot, and I'll get to why. So as the film progresses, we find out that Hemsworth's character, Billy the Kid, he doesn't want to be a mercenary. He thought that it was for him, but it just wasn't, and he wants to get out of it and go be with his girlfriend in France. But he says, he's going to stick around for the rest of the month. And after he says that to Stallone, that he wants out, and then he can't do it anymore. So Stallone, they're back at their station where they got the plane, and that's where Bruce Willis comes in as Church. And that's where you get that line, I could have buried you in the deepest, darkest hole, but I didn't because I knew that the day would come where you would have to pay me back. And today is that day. And basically he tells him there's a plane went down in Eastern Europe. Inside of the plane, there's this thing that you need to bring back because we can't let it fall into the wrong hands. And he says, we're going to send someone with you. She's an expert in this sort of thing. Her name is Maggie Chan, and that's played by Yunnan. So when they get, Yunnan, she does fine. She does a pretty good job. She doesn't get in the way. She's not annoying. She holds her own in the fight sequences and in the shootout stuff like that. So she was fine. One thing I didn't like though was that they try to build a little bit of a romance between her and Stallone. It isn't a big part of the movie, but you can definitely tell that's what they were trying to do. It's kind of like what they did in the first one with Stallone and that one with that one Latin chick who had a butt face. At least I thought she had kind of a butt face. Yunan's definitely a lot cuter and a lot hotter. But they do the whole. There's sort of a thing between her and Stallone, and there's a fun little moment later on in the film where they have this little conversation about like what their last meals would be if it was their last day on Earth. That's a fun scene, which I won't spoil. You just got to check the movie out to see what I mean. Um, and they go there. They get the plane. They get to the plane, to the wreckage, get the device that they're looking for, and who shows up? Jean-Claude Van Damme, who plays the villain of the film, named Jean Valin, which basically means Johnny Villain. I know. And he's got Billy the Kid captured because they ambushed him. And he says, drop your weapons, give me the device, or he dies. And Van Damme is the villain. He's okay, but he's not really in the movie that much. Sad to say. He's only in a couple of scenes. And when he's first introduced, he's got this little speech that he gives because he's part of this organization called the Sangs, and they all got they got these tattoos of a goat. He's like, look at this. This is a symbol. This is the goat, the pet of Satan. In this business, all we got is respect. If we don't have respect, then we're just people with guns shooting each other. He's got a little speech. It's a decent little speech. And he says he's gonna let Billy the Kid go if they give him the device and everything like that. But of course, it's horseshit. And the way he kills Billy the Kid is he has Scott Adkins, who's in this. He has Scott Adkins hold up a knife, which is actually Stallone's knife, which he took from Stallone earlier. Put it up to Liam Hemsworth's chest, and Jean-Claude Van Damme just kicks it, boom, right into his chest and kills the guy. Big one surprise about this film: Jean-Claude Van Damme actually cracks a fucking smile. It's a fucking miracle because when he's turning after he kills Billy Kid, takes the knife out, wipes off the blood, and takes the knife with him, and they're all getting in. Him and his gang are getting into a chopper. He actually turns around, looks back at Stallone, and cracks a little smile. He's like, I fucked it up there, but you know what I mean. Like the type of smile a smug, evil bastard of a villain would have on his face. Which was interesting, I think that's the first time Van Damme cracked a smile in a movie in years. So yeah, I mean, Van Damme is the villain. He has a decent little introduction, but it honestly really isn't anything special because Van Damme really isn't in the movie that much, which is too bad. So that's one kind of problem. I still liked him in this movie, but I don't think his villain was great. But he had some fun moments. That little speech he gives, but sometimes when he delivers his lines, it's kind of weird. Like when he says to Stallone, "Do not challenge me," like he's trying to say challenge, but with his accent. But Van Damme, he did okay. It wasn't great. I wish he was in the movie more. I wish he had a little bit more to do. But he had his moments. I mean, he's definitely a very ruthless villain, like a very despicable guy. Like you really want Stallone to get this guy because he's a real evil motherfucker. Because he's like, the whole point is that little device is actually a radar that will show them where all this old weapons grade plutonium left over by the Soviets from the Cold War is buried in this mine. And he's got basically innocent people that he's taken from these local villages in Eastern Europe, and he's basically forcing them to work in this mine to dig up the plutonium. And he says, one of those guys in the mine tells him, "Oh, these people, they're dying. They can't work because they're all dying off, and Van Damme's like, bring back more people, the men, the women, and the children, all of them. Like, don't, you know. So very ruthless guys. I mean, these guys just don't care. They're, you know, and Van Damme's, you know, I mean, his whole plan is to sell this plutonium, you know, which are it's weapons grade, so it's already ready to be used in nuclear weapons. But after that, you know, you get that line where Stallone is like, you know, when they ask him what's the plan, track him, find him, kill him, you know. So the whole group, the Expendables, they go try to track down his gang and get a fun scene where Statham and Stallone get these brass knucks and they get into a bar, punch these guys out. It's a fun scene, you know. Jason Statham's like, you can't beat the classics. um, and then you get some decent action in the middle. Like when we were introduced to Chuck Norris, it's a cool moment because when Chuck Norris shows up, the main group, they get surrounded by some of Van Damme's men, and they're out of ammo. Right, they're out of ammo, and the bad guys have a fucking tank, and they're shooting at them, and then all of a sudden the tank explodes, and all the bad guys get just mowed down. Just they all just fall down, and then we're introduced to Chuck Norris, and this is I thought was a very funny and awesome moment because you start to hear the music from those Clint Eastwood Man with No Name westerns. You know the bow, 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 as Chuck Norris is walking down. And you get this really cool line where Stallone's like, I heard a rumor that you got bit by a cobra. And Chuck Norris is like, yeah, I was. And after 4 days of excruciating pain, the cobra died. I thought that was a fun moment. After that, Chuck Norris kind of disappears because he's like, you know, I work alone. But he does come back in the end, which I thought was cool. And that's the thing. Schwarzenegger isn't in the movie throughout the middle of the film, but he comes back for the end. And the finale of this film is a lot of fun. For anyone out there who's wondering, Schwarzenegger does get to say, I'll be back. But then you get that line where Bruce Willis is like, you've been back long enough. I'll be back. And he comes back with the car and that just shoot. You know, they get into the car and they're blowing her. I mean, the ending's a lot of fun. I mean, you get this really cool moment because it all ends at an airport when Jean-Claude Van Damme and his men are trying to get the plutonium out of the country. And you get this really awesome moment where Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, 80s action dream team standing right next to each other with guns, just going in, just, you know, Schwarzenegger's still got that fucking automatic shotgun. He's like, just, you know, you got Bruce Willis coming in, shooting. There's Stallone right next to him, just with two guns, boom, blowing everybody away. And that was just an awesome moment. Great fucking moment. The ending's a lot of fun. Everybody's just getting blown away. A big awesome shootout inside of an airport. And then of course you got the finale with Stallone versus Van Damme. And of course you get that moment where they're shooting at each other, but they both run out of ammo, and Van Damme comes out. You want to kill me like a man, or you want to kill me like a sheep? And Van Damme, he also says, he says to Stallone, Stallone also takes off his guns and he throws them aside. And Van Damme has another line. What the fuck was it? I'm trying to remember. When you kill me like a man, or you kill me like a goat. What the fuck was it? Oh, finally remember. He's like, Van Damme is like, I bet you want to hurt me, don't you? And Stallone's like, no, I don't want to hurt you. I want to take your goddamn life. Well, probably doesn't say goddamn. He just probably says, I want to take your life. And you get the fight, you know, very ground and pound. I mean, it wasn't a great fight. I really wish it could have been a little bit longer with more back and forth. Stallone really takes it to Van Damme, and Van Damme busts out the helicopter kick. The boom. And he does it twice. And that's another thing. Van Damme hasn't done that kick in a movie in a long time either. And in this movie, he does it twice. And that was cool. Boom, to see him do that again. And then at the end, Stallone gets that knife that Van Damme took from him in the beginning and fucking just takes his chain, wraps it around Van Damme's neck, pulls him towards, Stallone pulls Van Damme towards him, sticks the knife in his gut, um, fucking sticks it in, slices him, kills him, and at the end of the movie, he comes out after he kills Van Damme, and he goes up to Mr. Church and he says, "Is he dead?" Bruce Willis says this. He says, "Is he dead?" And Stallone goes, "Yeah, he's dead." "Yeah, any proof?" "Yeah, here." And he takes this sack that has basically Van Damme's head in it, and he tosses it. He tosses it towards Bruce Willis. He's like, "Heads up." And Schwarzenegger, I think he says, like, "That's a bit much, don't you think?" And then after that, Stallone and his group, they're taking off, and Yunnan, says, "I could stay if you want me to." "No, you got to go with them. It's not, because that's your place down here." Again, they're doing the whole, she's kind of got a thing for Stallone or whatever. They did the same thing in the first movie, and I didn't really care for that in the first movie anyway. And in this one, I didn't care for it either. But they get into this plane. It's in the trailer where they see that beat up plane. Bruce Willis gave that to him as like, "Consider it a gift, a token of my appreciation." And that's where Stallone says, "That thing belongs in a museum." Schwarzenegger's like, "We all do." And they take off, and they take off in the plane, have a couple beers, and then boom, movie's over. And this was just a really fun movie. The pace was great. There's more action than the first one. It really felt like an 80s action movie. There is a lot of self-referential humor. There's a lot of references to a lot of stuff. Like there's like when Chuck Norris shows up at the end and Schwarzenegger sees him, Schwarzenegger goes, "Who's next? Rambo?" And of course the "I'm back," and then when he says, "I'll be back," uh, but it were like I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very fun movie. Um, just a ton of action, more than the first one. Very fun. Uh, Back and forth between some of the guys. They have, like I said, this cool little conversation they have about what their last meal is going to be. And Dolph Lundgren has a very funny line when they're having that little conversation. But Expendables 2 was awesome. I would say it's up there. It's one of my favorite films of the year. Uh, I mean, I loved it. I would say I even liked it more than the first one. Because, like I said, I really love the first film, but it didn't feel like an 80s action movie. This one really feels like an 80s action film. And even though it has some problems, the whole romance between Yunnan and Stallone didn't really work. But, Van Damme could have been in it a little bit more. But he was decent. Again, I wish he had more screen time. I wish he was given a little bit more to do, more fun villain moments. But I guess that's how it goes. But hey, you get to see him bust out the helicopter kick again. And again, I wish the final fight between him and Stallone was a little bit longer, a little bit more back and forth. But overall, just a fun movie. I'm glad I saw it in theater. I mean, this was just great. Uh, yes, there is still, I guess, when people get shot, there's still some CGI blood, but it isn't as bad as in the first one. And the first one is really noticeable, and this one, not so much. Not so much. And in fact, there's even one cool moment I gotta mention where they're in this village that's getting attacked by Van Damme's men. And when they kill pretty much everybody else, and you get that scene in the church where Statham goes, "I now pronounce you man and knife." That scene where he fucks up these guys. Once they kill pretty much everybody else, they see one more guy left, and they just fucking stand there and just obliterate him, just go, and he gets blown apart, and he falls down, and Stallone goes, "Rest in pieces." I thought that was a cool line. But overall, a really fun movie. I highly recommend Expendables 2. In my opinion, was better than the first. Um, Simon West did a great job directing because there's zero shaky cam in this. Zero shaky cam, which I appreciated. You don't really see that these days anymore. And well edited, I thought, really well edited as well. Um, really fun movie, highly recommended. And that's it. That's all I have to say. And well, this is Mr. 707 Legend saying, "We built this city on rock and roll." Later.